Hello, this is Becky Hill. I'm speaking about the 1950 census. It's new, it's old, and it is out. Speaking for the Genealogy Society of Seneca County. I can't be there to the meeting tonight on March 7th because I'm at a basketball game with my son and grandson. So Jim Stoltz is helping out tonight. This program was requested by an old-time member of the society, Mary Jo Ney. And Mary Jo, hi, I hope you're watching. And we're going to get started. So the census is the building block of your genealogy. It was started in the United States in 1790, and it was created every 10 years. In 1850, they started listing every person in the household. The 1890 census was destroyed and is not available, but others from 1790 through 1950 are available. The law is they are not released to the public for 72 years, and that is because of privacy issues. At one point in time, 72 years was a lifespan. Of course, many of us have gone past that, so we're happy that we get to see the census in our lifetimes now. The last one released was 1950. Last one released was the 1951, which is just in April of 2002. So this past April. So it's been out almost a year, and many of us are in it. What's new? The first appearance of the baby boom generation in the census. It's the first time they've popped up. And after World War I or World War II, this is the first census post-World War II. Only 20 questions were asked of everyone compared to 34 in the 1940 census. And there is only digital access. Paper copies were destroyed after they were microfilmed, and the microfilm is not available to the public for use. But there's lots of digital access. What's old? It's the same attempt. It started way back. It's an attempt to count and name all the people in the United States. It also tries to count every living abode, every house, every place where people lived, apartments or whatever. People are counted regardless of age, race, housing, etc. So what does it look like? For those of you who have been doing genealogy, you probably got into the 1940 census, and it's quite similar to that. It's quite different from the earlier census. This form has 30 people on each page. 6 people per page were asked an additional sample questions, and that's done at the bottom down here. 1 person per page was asked even more additional questions. So if you hit the genealogical jackpot, you get one of those questions, people that got to answer the additional sample questions. The bulk of the variations from the 1940 census is in those sample questions. Now, I don't think anybody can read this, so I blew it up for the next session here. And this is all the questions that everyone was asked. First, the name of the street, then the name of the number of the house. So if you're living in a city, you get the actual number of your house so you can see where people are living. Serial number of a dwelling unit. So if it was apartments, they would say it's apartment 3A or whatever. Is this a house on a farm or a ranch? If this house is on is it on a place of 3 or more acres? That's kind of unusual. The agricultural questionnaire number is just a number that leads off to another set of schedules for the farmers in agriculture. And that's a different set of schedules altogether. We don't see those here. What is the name of the head of the household? What are the names of all the other people who lived here? And they're supposed to list these in order, and you'll see it's pretty similar to other census records. The head of the household, his wife, unmarried sons and daughters in order of age, married sons and daughters and their families, other relatives and other persons such as lodgers, roomers, maids or hired hands who live in and their relatives. So those are the first 7 questions. Then the next ones are relationship, head of the household, wife, daughter, grandson, mother-in-law, lodger, lodger's wife, maid, hired hand, etc. So they're supposed to give those kind of relationships as they create the census. The race, and that's an ever-changing area where they use different labels for things. So in this year, they've got white, Negro, American Indian, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, and other races. Spell it out. So hopefully you can find what race they are there that makes sense. Sex, how old was he, and they use he on everything. How old were they on their last birthday? And if they're under 1 year old, then they get a month of their birth. Are they married? Are they now married, widowed, divorced, separated, or never married? And the initials for those are married and widowed and D and SEP and new, NEV. What state or foreign country were they born in? And if they are naturalized or not. For people that are over 14 years of age, they get to answer these questions. What kind of work were they doing? Working, keeping house, or something else? Did this person do any work in the last week? Yes or no? Or is this person looking for work? Yes or no? Remember, we just came out of the Depression 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And so they're concerned about who was out of work and unemployment, all of that. Even though they didn't work last week, did they have a job? And if so, how many hours did they work? What kind of work did they do? And what kind of business or industry was he working in? So this is a kind of work is he doing, and they give examples like he's a chemistry professor, and the kind of business he's in is in a state university. So a farm helper is in a farm. So those are good questions for us genealogists. This last column was used by enumerators afterwards to classify the occupation, and it's really just for their bookkeeping area. You don't really need to worry about it too much. Now, this is the bottom of the 1950 census after those listings of all those people. And then those people, some of them, 5 of them, 6 of them, got a little circle on their name, and they had to answer the additional questions. And you can't read this here, but this is the part of the census at the bottom of the page where 6 people, lucky for us genealogists, got to answer additional questions, and then the others didn't. These questions, were they living in the same house? Was he living on a farm? Was he living in the same county? What country were his father and mother born in? Yay, that's one we always want to know. And the highest grade of school they attended, did he finish? And has he attended school anytime since February 1st? Again, some of those we would love to know for everybody, but we only get 6 people on each sheet. And these are additional questions. How many, again, a lot of work-oriented things. How many weeks has he been looking for work? If he's out, did he do any work? How much money did he earn working as an employee for wages? Now, this is kind of tricky. People aren't real happy about telling the census taker that, and that's why they said, well, this isn't going to come out for 72 years, so you're going to be long gone. It's not going to make any difference to you. So some people would answer, and other people would take the form and said they would mail it in and send it directly to the government. And of course, some people never did. How much money did they earn working in their own business? How much money did they earn from or receive from interest, dividends, veterans allowances, pensions, rent, and other income? So this is not salary. This is pensions and things, and dividends and other stuff. And again, you get a lot of blanks on that one. How much money do the relatives in his house get? And how much did they get in? All this stuff. So that's all about the relatives. If male, did he ever serve in the U.S. Army during World War I, II, or any other time? Again, we would love to know that for everybody, but we only get 6 people answering that question. Now, of those 6 people, one of those got to answer more questions. And that is whether they worked, what kind of work did they do, same kind of thing. Has a person been married more than once? How many years since this person was last married, widowed, divorced, or separated? Yes, we would like to know that. And how many children has the woman born? So those are questions they've asked on previous census. And again, those are great for genealogy, but you only get one person on each page answering that question. And that one person could be a 5-year-old kid. So it's it's not real helpful only to have one person doing that. So how do you find your family on the 1950 census? You want to do it, you could find yourself perhaps, you want to look at the neighborhood. After being out a year, Ancestry.com has led the way in having the best user-friendly index using sophisticated artificial intelligence and handwriting recognition technology. And it saved time by creating an initial index from digital census records, and it was improved upon throughout this past year. And now they consider it the census index, the census to be indexed by Ancestry. It's my first choice. I like Ancestry. I have a subscription to it, and I find the site easy to use to find the census records. The other options are, and there are others besides these, but these are the top three. FamilySearch.org. It's the Mormon site. It has built on the same technology that Ancestry had, I believe, and volunteers are reviewing the automated index to ensure that every name is included and indexed correctly. This is my second choice. The National Archives is the government website for the 1950 census, and they are actually giving away the whole census to anybody. So any company can get this information from them because it's of course paid for by the government, and they consider it open data. They also use artificial intelligence to index the census, but it wasn't as slick as Ancestry's, and the search can be much more frustrating on this site. It's still useful, however, and easy to get to and totally free without any login needed. Okay, so I'm going to go through each one of these, and Ancestry, like I said, is my first choice, and I'm going to go into it, and I'll probably end up going through my own subscription. So when you go through it, you'll have to sign in, even though it's you don't have a subscription, you still would have to sign in. So here is my Ancestry account, and yours won't look like this because this is my personal one, but you would go up here to the search and go to census, and it will take you to this page. And you don't want to search all the census if you're just interested in 1950. So I'd go over here and narrow it by category, and you click on that one, and it brings up all the census records they have. You have to scroll down, and down there is the 1950 census. Sometimes they'll have that popped on the top page, but usually they change that around so much. This is the way to find it. Okay, so I'm going to use my kid's great-grandfather who lived in Tiffin just as examples to show you on each of these things. So his name was John Kirshner. Doesn't matter whether you're high or low, caps or not. And all you have to do is add, for this one, all you have to do is add the town, and Ancestry will pop up with which Tiffin do you want? And of course you want to go to Seneca County, Ohio. This is because I'm a member. It says, well, which one do you want? You don't get that if you're not a member. So I'm just asking for John Kirshner in Tiffin, Ohio in the 1950 census. And bingo dingo, the first one is the one I want. There's a couple of other ones that are possible, but the one I want is the very first one. And you can hover over it and it'll give you a synopsis to see if that's the right one, or you can say, oh yeah, that's mine, and click on view record. And here's a transcription of the data, and this is what they think it is, either through the computers or through their quality. Transcription accuracy is dependent upon the quality of the document being scanned. For best results, view the census image. This is good for every census you do. Don't ever just rely on the transcription. Go to the image. And here's our Tiffin, Ohio 1950 census for John Kirshner, who lived on Jackson Street in Tiffin, Ohio. So we're going to bring this up. You could bring it up really big. And here we go. Now you see, here's those sample lines. They've got the people that have to are going to give more information down below. And you're seeing those highlighted over there. Now the column that runs perpendicular to the other data is a listing of the street, the address. So they lived at 30 Jackson Street, and bingo, there it is, Jackson Street, and 30 is the number of the house. And then this next number is the number that the census taker was going. So this is the 76 household or dwelling that he's going to. So it really doesn't make any difference to you. It's not a farm. He doesn't have any acres, and his name is John Kirshner. He's head of the household. He's white. He's male. He's 54, and he's married. He was born in Ohio, and he works. And he worked 40 hours last week. And he's a manager of a moving van, a dray company. And that's the guy I want. And I said, okay. And there's Grace, and I knew Grace. She was younger than him, 48, and she doesn't work. She works in the house, and that's all we have to hear about her, except she was born in Ohio. This person, next person, is Rufina Neiswander, and it says she's the mother. Well, she is the mother, but not of John Kirshner. She's the mother of Grace, because I know that. But the census taker might not have been told. John might have been saying, well, that's my mother, or Grace might have been answering and said, that's my mother. So in this census, we don't know who is actually answering the questions. 1940, I believe, they said who was answering the questions. So if they said mother, then you know it was a mother of the person who was answering the questions. So anyhow, she's 82, and she's widowed, and she didn't have an occupation, not working. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this in a minute. Now, because whenever you use census records, if you see a family and it stops here, you think there might be more, always go to the next page and see if it was continued on the next page. And bingo, yes, there's June Kirshner, which is their daughter. They're still at 30 Jackson Street, and they're still actually number 76 dwelling number. Janet Ray was a daughter. She was only 12, lived in Ohio, or born in Ohio. And then they've got Sanford Brady, called him Junior. He was their foster son, which is kind of neat. He worked for him, but he was from the junior home, and they really were foster. He went to all the family, he and his family came to a lot of the family reunions and holidays and things. So they were very close, and he was living there, even though he was born in Tennessee. He was at the junior home, and they brought him in, and they, lived with him. And he was working there as a young guy, helper with the moving company. And then this was kind of unusual. I didn't know about this, that Henry, the brother, lived with him in 1950. He was 57, and he was a widower. And so he was also with the moving company. So there's a snapshot of that family in 1950 showing it's a big house. They had a lot of room, and they had mom, dad, mother-in-law, 2 kids at that point, a foster son and a brother, all living there. And at that point they had enough room. And then later on, my mother-in-law and her 7 kids moved in. So that was a change of pace, but most of these people were gone by then. Okay. All right, back. I'm going to go back here. And again, I wanted to show you what these additional questions are. So the only one in our household on this page is number 30, Rufina Neiswander, and she's a mother-in-law, and she's 82. So this is nice seeing her information. So you have to come down here and look for number 30. And there's not too much down here, except she was father and mother were born in the United States. And but much of the stuff says, oh, she had an education of S6. And you go down here and it shows over here. It says that they had 6 years of school and she graduated. She got through elementary school. So she never went beyond that. And that's very common for somebody who was 82 at that point. But she had some income, and that was a pension. It was probably from her husband. And that's all for her. Now, the next page, the only one was extra. It was June Kirshner, and she was the aunt. And I'm going to go down and see what they say about her. She's number 1. And she went to high school and graduated. And she worked, how many weeks did this person do any work? 50 weeks. And then it says how much money did he work as an employee. I guess that's a total, like $1,300. And that's all that you really get for her. She's not married at this point. So back we go to the PowerPoint, and that is what Ancestry looks like. And I'm going to review it here. You go to the census list and put in your name and the place, and then it'll come up and you view the record. Okay, so that pretty easy. Yours is going to look a little different because you're not going to be having the same screens as I do, but it'll be basically the same. Okay, family search is here, and you will create an account or sign in. You can get some stuff without doing that, but I would always just sign in, and the account is nothing invasive. It's really easy to use, and they don't bother you with anything. They don't ask you for money, and they don't ask for anything else either. So we want to go to search records. And I found this was for them. It was easiest to type in United States 1950, and it pops up. You could try Census 1950. They're just goofy about their subjects. And there's other ways to find it, but get into it and you're going to get to the 1950 census. And at this point, you can read about it. You can go into browsing it all, but you could still go ahead and we're going to put in John Kirshner and Tiffin. Let's see if that's, we want. Okay, so I'm just going to type that in. And there it is. That's the one we want. Now you see this looks different from Ancestry's view because it's a different company. But basically what they've got here is a hit list of all the John Kirshners they think might be ones I want. And these gives me enough information to say, oh yeah, that's the right one. You can go over here, you can click on this, you'll get the same thing. Another page with more detail, or you can go right over here and click on the image, or you can click on the record details, the transcriptions, and this is linking to their system of family tree in Family Search. So unless you have a family tree on Family Search, don't worry about that. So you can either click over here and get to it, or you can click on the little camera and it's going to bring up that census record, which is exactly the same one as we saw in Ancestry, because it's all coming from the same source. You look at it a little differently, and there it is. And the same information. Now you have a choice in here of looking at, as you look at something, it will come up down here, transcribe. So you have trouble reading it, it will give you a lot of that information, or you can get rid of it. You can look at all the census in this slideshow kind of thing. So the one here, we are here. So if you were here and you wanted to go, I want to see who's in the next page, like see if there's anybody in the next page, you could either hit the forward button or you can use that browse multiple image tool there. So there's a second page. Now what this one's kind of good is this is showing you that enumeration district, I believe. And so you're only seeing the people in that part of the neighborhood. And we're going to talk about this a little later. But if you wanted to browse through each one of those, you could by using that tool. Okay. So we're going to get back out of there. Sure we are. And so family search, it's always free. You can use it and search it for free. You don't need a subscription. We need to sign in. First you go to search, then census, the 1950. And that's where we did it. And that's that. So the next one and the last one I'm going to cover is the National Archives. This is the government one. It's been out since day one in April. It's always free. No login is needed. However, their website transcription tool enables their machine generated index was not as good as Ancestry's, and it's really kind of clunky. So there's a lot of errors in it. You only use this one, you may have trouble finding your people. However, if you find it and you see there's problems, you can, they have a transcription tool which enables users to submit the names updated, which improves the accuracy of the name index and makes the records more accessible for everyone. So I'll walk you through that. Here's how I corrected my the record for my family in 1950. So here's my dad, Charles M. Baker, and he was the head of the household. He was living in Niagara Falls, New York. He was working, he was a pipe fitter in a Union Carbide, an alloy plant. LMA, some of you knew, and my brother Howard, my brother Frank, and here I am, Rebecca. And my middle name is Sue, so it should be an S. It looks like a B. It looks like an F. I'm not sure what. So this is what the National Archives saw, and their machine generated machine learning extracted names. So this is how they index it. They got Charles Baker right, which was really helpful because that's the one I knew it would be listed under. LMA is Thank L's M. I don't know whether they got Frank in there. T Hansard C is Charles Howard, I guess, and Rebecca F, which isn't too bad. So I said, that's wrong. So I sent in my corrections and I told him it was Charles Baker and Ella Baker and Howard C. Baker and Frank H. and Rebecca S., even though it still looks like an F. But I did that back in probably May of 2022, and it's up there. So I think yeah, that's right. And they put it right up there. So it does work. And if you go and see it, I would go ahead and go correct it. Even if you're not using it that much, you know who you are and can correct it, and they will use it. Okay, so we really didn't, let's see. I need to go into the National Archives. This is the website for finding your census on the National Archives. You can begin your search, and we're going to do John Kirshner again. We're going to go to Ohio. And we're going to go to, let's try, and no, it doesn't take Tiffin. It has big cities, but it doesn't have Tiffin, I don't think. EIFF, no, but they do have Seneca. So yes. Now I have in the past, when I've done this, I put in John Kirshner, and it came with a whole bunch of Johns that were affiliated with Kirshner at all. So I'm just going to lop off the John and just ask for any Kirshner because it is a semi-unusual name. Okay, we're searching Tiffin, we're searching Seneca County and Kirshner's. First one they come up with is a Charles Hirschner, which I think is a brother. I'm not going to look at him, but that's not the one I want. And then they have a Dale and a Ray and a Russell and a Jean and a Lee. I'm looking over here. There's June. There's somebody else, and there's Carl, and there's John. So I'm thinking that's probably the right one. But you're seeing how many I had to go down. I had to go down that whole list to see through all the Kirshners. And let's look at it. Now, does this look familiar? There's John and Grace and Rufina. So yes, that's the right one. And right here is the help us transcribe names that you can click on if you want to correct something. It's again, I'm pretty sure this is probably Charles Kirshner. Let's just see. Next to Charles Kraut. I remember they lived over there. Okay, this is next to, that's a K, it's a K, and but the machine learned it as an H. So that's not, you can see how it's not accurate. So 1950 census in National Archives is useful, it's free, and you could certainly play around with it, and I would go in there and look for your family, but it's not the easiest to use. That's the corrections we went through. Now, if you can't find your family using the indexes, you've tried all three of those and you can't find them, you can try searching where you think they lived. And if you don't know for sure, you could use city directories if they're available to help locate actual addresses in towns. But your best thing is to look through the enumeration district of where you think they lived. You can do something like Steve Morse's website. And this is one that he's done a huge amount of work for census records throughout the past several decades. And he did something for the 1950 census, and then Ancestry has something, and I think Family Search does too. But this one is pretty easy. You search for the state, and there's Ohio, and you go to search for the county. There it is, and they'll even drop it down. So what we're going to do is search for the city of Tiffin, and I'm going to say I want Jackson Street because I know they lived on Jackson Street. And look at that, it pops right up. They have them listed in there. And at that point, you can hit search, and it will come up. Oh, you'll say see ED maps for Seneca County. So what they're doing is going to show you the enumeration district map for Seneca County. Get the ED map images, a little clunky, and hit again. And there is a map of Tiffin, all plotted out with the enumeration districts. So I have to know where Jackson Street is, which I do. And it's over here. Here's downtown, there's the river, and this is Market Street, this is Perry, and it's right in the corner of Sandusky and near Sandusky and Market. Okay, so, and their house is in the very first block here of Jackson Street. So this one is very tricky because that block is actually in this enumeration district, 74-62. If you're across the street on the other side of Jackson Street, you're in a different enumeration district, 74-61. If they're a block down the street, they could be in 59, 57, 60. So Jackson Street is just all over the place. It's a boundary line, and it's if you wanted to browse through all the people that lived on Jackson Street, you'd be bouncing around several different enumeration districts. But you can see how the city is mapped out for the enumeration district. Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you the ancestry one, which is a different look. And they have it's called Explore Maps, and this is their census district finder, which is the enumeration district. So I'm actually going to write Jackson Street, Tiffin, and then it comes up. So I'm search, and here it goes. Woo, we're zooming in, we're zooming in. There's Tiffin. There's the boundary lines. And I'm going to make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger. And I'm going to find Jackson Street. And there it is. It's harder to see. There are, oopsie, didn't want to do that. Trying to get my face out of here. There. Show tools, map images on opacity. Okay. I thought there was some other toggle tool that worked, but this is actually working. It's you hover over that, you hover over your address and it will tell you which enumeration district it is. So you can actually plug in the street very easily up at that tool. And that's back at the top page of the census for ancestry. So what you want to do is you want to look in the neighborhood where they're supposed to be, but it can be tricky. So you have to go and then you go page by page and looking, and that's kind of fun to look through the neighborhood and see who's living there. The census takers were given directions on how to do things, and this is how they the procedure for going out into the field and enumerating people. You started here and you arrow, you go up there and you go down and you go around and round and round, and you can see how they're staying on one side of the street, and they probably found this to be the most time effective to do this. And so like Jackson Street, they just stayed on one side of the street and they ended up the other one, somebody else did the other side of the street. Now this is a map of Seneca County, and you can't really see it too clearly, but the next one is, and it's showing you, oops, guess I can't zoom on that. Yep, back. One more. Okay, here's the county and the enumeration districts. Tiffin, you saw, had a whole bunch of districts. Reed Township has one for the whole township. So that's a lot easier, and it's a lot larger than some of these smaller ones. So you don't necessarily have to go through all the issues with Tiffin, in a city like you do for the county. It's going to be one large enumeration district. And then there's the map of Tiffin, like we saw on the first one. Winding up, one thing that was interesting, there's lots and lots of interesting things about the 1950 census, but in this one, they had a trenchant night, and on April 11th in 1950, they went out from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and went to cover hotels and YMCAs and tourist courts or campgrounds. And they were stationed in these places on Tuesday and Wednesday. And each person was given a form to fill out. And then the numerator returned to see it get turned in. And it was trying to catch people who were in transit, basically, whether they were staying in a hotel or they were camping out or they were vagrants, they were trying to get everybody. So it was kind of interesting. They had a transit night. There is a lot of information online. To do this talk, information overload. There's lots and lots of stuff about the 1950 census. If you have trouble, you certainly can find more information online. I do have a handout with these links on it, and Jim Stoltz will send out an email with a link to that. Probably put it on Facebook and the website if I could figure it out. So the handout will have these addresses: the National Archives website, Ancestries, Family Search. This one is one from the University of Texas, and it just kind of summarized a bunch of stuff, which was kind of a nice comprehensive tool. And then there are videos, some very short, just 1 minute, that tell you a snippet of information about the 50 census. And then there's a 3-minute one, which was very concise and very good, by Ancestry, and you should be able to get those for free. National Archives done a series of tutorials which are more in depth and get right down into a lot of detail you probably never care about, but there are some good ones there from National Archives. So go out and find your family and enjoy finding your family. It was interesting for me to look in the neighborhoods, especially when I was born in Niagara Falls in 1948, and we left by 1958 and went out in the country, 25 miles outside. And the street where we lived, Whirlpool Street in Niagara Falls, had a parkway go through right after we left, and all of our house and all the houses on our street, that side of the street, were torn down for this parkway. So I never could go back and look at the neighborhood because it wasn't there anymore. But the 1950 census, here's all the people in those houses, and some of them I recognize their names, even though I was 10 years old when I left. But I said, oh yeah, I remember them. So it was kind of fun. Again, it's a snapshot of history in your life, in your family's life, and in the town and community you're in. So, and there's President Harry Truman getting his census taker. And I'm sure the census taker all looked like this lovely lady with her white heels and white dress carrying these huge books. But it was a nice photo opportunity. So that's it. And welcome and goodbye. And shout out to Mary Jo. I hope you learned more. And this is it. And goodbye. And hope we could find the end. There we go. Bye-bye.